Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on building mental resiliency and how to provide it for your team, hosted by the Iowa Secretary of State's office and Sara Kurovski, the President and CEO of Make-A-Wish Iowa and Mayor of Pleasant Hill, Iowa. My name is Ashley, and I am the Business Services Outreach Specialist here at the Iowa Secretary of State's office, and I'm being joined by Jacob, who is the Digital Manager here at our office. Please be aware that this webinar is being recorded for future use. Your name and details are hidden from other participants. The recording will be sent out to everyone who attended this webinar today and everyone who registered as well. We will have a moderated Q&A session to conclude the webinar today, so feel free to please post your questions in the Q&A chat box. Just make sure that it is the one labeled Q&A, and then we will make sure to answer as many of those as possible. Today's webinar topic is one that is super important, and we saw a really high interest in it actually, in the role of businesses supporting mental wellness during a survey that we conducted previously to gauge the interest of webinar topics. So I'm excited that we're able to do this today, especially that we're doing it with Sara. So now I'm going to turn it over to Secretary Pate for some brief remarks.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Iowa Secretary of State Paul Pate. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar about mental wellness in the workplace, a crucial topic that should remain at the forefront of conversation for businesses and organizations. We appreciate having some of your time, and I look forward to the Mayor's presentation on building mental resiliency and how to provide it for your team. According to the World Health Organization, approximately 12 billion working days are lost each year due to mental health issues. This equates to lost productivity and diminished team morale. It's clear to see that the workplace mental wellness matters, and we can all do something to make a positive impact on mental health and wellness in our workplaces. I have no doubt that you will find today's presentation about mental wellness in the workplace engaging. I hope you're able to take some of the information back and try some positive changes in your work environment.
All right, thank you, Secretary Pate, for those remarks. And now I'm going to introduce Sara. So Sara is passionate about those that she serves. In 2013, she became the first female mayor for the city of Pleasant Hill, Iowa. That journey was a result of her career starting out at a local government agency, Metro Waste Authority, and obtaining her MPA while serving on several local boards, such as the Board of Adjustment, Plan and Zoning, and Polk County Conservation. While Sara's service to Pleasant Hill grew, she was reelected for her third term in 2021. Her mayoral role also landed her on numerous boards. She transitioned to the nonprofit world in the role of the Tocqueville Society Director for United Way of Central Iowa. Sara's story landed her on the Lean In website and then in the second edition of Lean In for Graduates by Sheryl Sandberg. Additionally, her passion and leadership in both worlds resulted in her receiving 2 business record awards as well as others, and she was selected by the ACYPL for delegations to Israel and the Palestinian territories, and later to lead a delegation to Southeast Asia. In 2018, she received a nomination for a fellowship, and she is a member of the 2022-2023 Leadership Iowa class. In spring of 2021, Sara set her sight on a career transition to become the next president and CEO of Make-A-Wish Iowa. She now leads the team to strengthen their statewide efforts in ensuring that every eligible child fighting a critical illness in the state of Iowa can receive their wish. Outside of Sara's public service and career, she enjoys having fun with family and friends, loves global travel adventures, reading, enjoying music, movie nights, and family time. She is married to her high school sweetheart, Todd, and they are raising 2 boys. Sara received her undergraduate degree from Truman State University and her master's in public administration from Drake University. We're very excited to have you join us today, Sara, and now I'm going to hand it over to you. So thank you.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and we will get started. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm really excited just to share the journey I've been on and the practices we've put into place, both at Make-A-Wish Iowa and at the City of Pleasant Hill. So just to kind of kick this off, I am not a mental health expert. I simply have been responding to the world around me, asking a lot of questions and learning every step of the way. And I hope that just some of these common sense approaches will just really resonate with you and you can bring them forward for discussion in your own organizations. And then as we go through the presentation today, again, I just will give some background on myself, give you some resources and statistics to use in your conversations back with your managers and teams, and also provide the examples that we have put into place. And so as Ashley mentioned, she kind of highlighted my journey, and I have just been very active in the community and the workplace and really highlight public service as one of the best examples of a career option that anyone could take on. And I just feel so lucky to have been taught by so many individuals about their areas of expertise, but also really have dug into what impacts their worlds. And I believe that that's really been a part of me embracing the mental health component of the workplace, not only for myself, but for the team I'm leading. We need to respond as humans and our human needs in order to have high performing teams and really excel in the areas we want to. So one of your first resources, if you haven't read it, it is free. Read the US Surgeon General's Framework for Mental Health and Well-Being. You can get it online. Please just Google it. But it is so important to recognize that 76% of US workers report at least one symptom of mental health condition. And that can vary on a spectrum. We're not talking about the mental health illnesses that really need high level of oversight and medicine and therapists. We're just talking about anything from some kind of depression or postpartum, I'm sorry, and also just, the stress and what that does to the cognitive ability to think and process your daily activities and things that you need to get done. And when looking at the workplace, 84% of respondents said their workplace conditions had contributed to at least one mental health challenge. And, if we think about especially our managers, most of them typically don't come into a manager role with management training and background. And the number one part of the job is the people, and not just managing their workload and setting goals and expectations for performance, but a lot of it is managing the relationships that they are managing in the office and then their own impacts on their personal lives. I know that from my one-on-ones in both the city and Make-A-Wish, a lot of our conversation is about what's impacting their world and how to help them balance the needs in the workplace with their personal lives outside of it. This can be a huge distraction for managers, especially those who have high levels of empathy and really want to take care of their team. So making sure that they have the appropriate resource to have that mental health support and check on how to manage their emotions with their own team members is really important that we provide that for them. Something that's really strongly being recognized, especially by individuals who are studying organizational cultures and workplaces across the globe, especially coming out of COVID, is that 81% of workers reported they will be looking for a new workplace that supports mental health in the future. And so if you think about your website and how you're attracting those new employees when they're applying for a job, do you have that bullet that says, we have mental health practices in place, or here's how we support mental health? That is a key indicator to individuals who are applying for jobs, and really look at what you have publicly out there to help draw in those new talents into your organization. Again, this is from the Surgeon Generals, but I will not be going into this, but they really go into some of these items that I've highlighted, such as the work-life harmony. And something, that we really take for granted is also on the mental health component is that opportunity for growth. That ties into our belief for success and not stressing about, am I meeting my manager's expectations? And so it all is intertwined. A lot of us do these practices already, but it's just a really good refresher in this report on how they impact mental health and how we as managers and leaders can really ensure that our teams feel supported and then therefore producing at a high level for our organization. And of course, who can forget the pandemic? I know we're all sick and tired of reliving it and talking about it, but a study came out that showed that workers who felt supported during the pandemic are 2.5 times more likely to be satisfied with their job. That's not even about an environment, benefits, or incentives and pay. This is just about the feeling of support. So again, I know we're all looking at hiring the best and retaining really talented employees. So what is the communication like in all of your organizations to make that mental health connection to feeling successful and being supported? What is that communication looking like? And how are you talking to your top talent to make sure that they're not going to want to go anywhere else? They know that they are supported by you and therefore contributing to their positive mental health. This is a second resource for you. It's Mindshare Partners 2021 Mental Health at Work, and you're going to love the next image I have. This is just some highlights and some of the data that they have in this report. It will really help you dig into the different generations of workers, what they're looking for, what are the impacts in the workplace, and it goes into the different service areas of the industry. We know that not everyone can offer, for example, mental health days because you need to have somebody in every step on the manufacturing floor. So it makes sure to really cover the different areas of work and just different things to consider and how you're working with your employees and speaking to them. So I really recommend this resource. It has really given me a lot to think about, and I know it will for you as well. So to go into some of these policies, and if you're not having a visceral reaction going back to the pandemic by these photos, I don't know who wouldn't, but this is not to be a political photo page. This is just to bring us back to the environment of what was going on in 2020 and 2021 and how our city came to the mental health policy decision that we did. You know, for myself, being a mayor of a suburb in central Iowa, it personally was a very hard time. I was mayoring at home. I was raising money for my former employer that I worked for at the time. I led, a large philanthropic group. And then of course I had 2 young children in elementary school that I was homeschooling. And so if you want to talk about pressure and stress and then going into the mental health components of what that did, that was a really difficult time. But, as somebody who sees himself as the leader of a community, my heart was breaking for the people who were losing their loved ones, who couldn't see their loved ones, for the members in our nursing homes in our community, and first and foremost, our first responders, to not be able to simply hug them, go into the space and thank them, not to see their smiles or even their tears because they were hidden by masks. It was a very challenging time. And I was just very thankful that leadership and the council in our city were really open to talking about what do we do to support our first responders, not only from the health safety side of things, but also the mental health component. So we began that conversation. And just so you have a highlight of where we are located, Pleasant Hill is again a suburb of Des Moines. You can see our population and we are growing, but still we're pretty small compared to the rest of the metro area. So we do struggle with a lot of the impacts of a large metropolitan area, especially as it relates to public safety needs and having still the small town feel and the small town amenities. So for us in Pleasant Hill, when we were working on this process and then eventually passing the policy and the resolution, here is the why. And this doesn't highlight everything, but we really needed to make sure that as we were working on this policy, it didn't make anyone different. No one is special. No one is that person who goes to see somebody about their mental health. Everyone is treated the same. So by establishing a policy that is consistent, Every employee follows in the public safety department. Therefore, then no one is unique. No one is different. And of course, I, as a leader, stood up at the top and said, getting mental health services and support is essential. I go and see someone just to talk about my day or what's happening in the world or how hard it is to homeschool my own children during that time, really help people start to share and elevate their stories. And so it became a norm. And so when looking at policies, making sure that no one is special, no one is being signaled out, helps normalize this in an organization. And so you can see some of the language here that we began to use with our team, with the council, and of course, as any city would do, we made sure to review it from a legal perspective. And again, we do not want to step out of line, do anything inappropriate, and this was just a really great policy for us to bring forward and adopt. Here is the actual language from the city council materials that was presented and then approved by our council. So we had public meetings on this, we had work sessions, and you can see highlighted and underlined here that this new policy required an annual physical and mental examination be paid for by the city and performed by a physician or licensed medical facility designated or approved by the city. Again, we needed to meet people where they were, wanted to make sure they felt safe, but this was so important that everyone take the time. And again, nobody is special. Everyone is doing this, even the chief. They are standing at the front saying this is important. And we need to just decompress, get things off of our minds, not be distracted, so we can serve the public to the absolute best of our ability. And then here you can see language from the actual resolution that the council approved and I signed on May 10th in 2022. So we are just over a year into the policy and it has been going very well. But some people ask, okay, Sarah, what about the cost? Everybody is concerned about their bottom line and how they implement it. So I am going to share some of this information with you, but also why the cost conversation is equally as important as to what if you don't do something. And so I ask you, what is the cost of human error? And especially for a city and looking at our first responders, that is one group of amazing individuals. You do not want to have them be distracted. You do not want them being weighed down by some of the mental conversations or struggles that they are having so they can really meet the public when they are needed at some of the worst moments in their own lives, so we can service them and also not have errors. And so when you look at the cost of human error, some of those stated issues and national studies and international studies really are from equipment issues, from bad instructions and communications, and being distracted. And so while we can't control everything, we really focus on the mental health component, and having clarity and support can help be our part of reducing human error. And for us as a city annually, from paying for the services for our department, again, this is police, fire, and EMS, it is under $10,000. And that's, for a small city, it might seem like a lot of money, but we look at nationally the trends and numbers around what municipalities pay out a year in settlements and claims. And of course, this number, which is around $1 billion a year and has gone up since the time of that study, that's not to say that this was due to being distracted. There are multiple lawsuits out there, but that's a big number. And so the more that we as municipalities can support and provide these services, we can make sure that we are removing that obstacle from our team members of being distracted. And again, supporting them, allowing to have clarity and think through things in as clear of mind as possible while they're doing some of the most important jobs that exist in our communities. So moving into Make-A-Wish, as Ashley said, I am the CEO and president also at Make-A-Wish Iowa. And at Make-A-Wish Iowa, we grant life-changing wishes to children fighting a critical illness right here in Iowa. There's not a county that we don't have a child fighting a critical illness in and waiting for a wish. And right now, in summertime of 2023, we have just under 400 kids waiting for a wish in Iowa. And so as I joined the team, of course, it was in 2021. We were just as a world coming out of COVID and changing and readapting back to being fully in place in the workplace and all those transitions that were occurring. I was really getting to know the team and really getting into the depth of their work. And I watched them as they were became the caretakers for these families and really helping these children just experiencing hope and joy in a way that really wasn't possible in their lives with everything that they were fighting. And when you have somebody managing a family like this, it's kind of going back to what I said earlier about our managers, especially, being in a nonprofit. You typically don't go do nonprofit work for the salary. It's because you care. And so our team members are really carrying the burden of the weight of what these families are going through. And so we started talking about, not only with Make-A-Wish America and our team internally, what are the mental health impacts of our families and our wish kids, and then our team. And you can see here, there is an impact report from Make-A-Wish America that you can see the full report online. And it really talks about, especially you see that dark blue column, what the impact of a wish is on emotional and mental health well-being for these families that are just going through the worst of the worst time. But then like I said, we began discussing as a team, what does that look like for our team? How are we supporting them when they are doing everything they can for these families? And, for us, we're lucky. A majority of our kids do go on and live really long lives, but we do have really bad weeks where we have a few of our children that are receiving a wish or have received a wish, they do pass away. And we are just heartbroken for the families and what they're going through. And we wish we could change that for them, and we can't. And so how are we processing this, and what are we doing for the team? So I worked with our board of directors to really talk about what can we do and how do we implement this, especially being a nonprofit, knowing that costs for anything outside of our mission is just a hard thing to work on. And through working with our broker, that was one of the first steps I took. And I really encourage you to work with your insurance broker. And if you don't have one, find one in your community, reach out to them and say, what resources do you have? How can I investigate this? What could this look like? And our broker was really helpful in just asking the right questions, thinking out loud, and really came to us with Good Life Therapy. You can see their website on here. They are located in West Des Moines, but we reached out to them and began to partner and said, what could this look like? And they were really excited about working with our team and making sure that we were responding to their mental health needs. And so for us, I wanted to make sure that this was being supportive, it was something we could afford, and also was accessible, because we do have employees that don't live and work right here in Central Iowa. So I needed to make sure there was a virtual option for them as well. And so with that, we came forward with a new benefit that was adopted into our handbook, and you can see some of that language here, but it's twofold. So first, we cover the very first visit with Good Life Therapy, or if somebody's already going to somebody else or they would like to use someone else, we cover that first visit 100%. And I will be going through costs so you can see that. And then we made sure that Good Life Therapy accepted our insurance that we have at Make-A-Wish Iowa. So then if somebody wanted to continue, they could be able to just pay their copay to continue to meet with someone. And then something new and unique as we worked with Good Life Therapy to come into our office about once a quarter to have group sessions to really talk about building that mental resiliency and how to balance and identify compassion fatigue, which was an eye-opening experience for our entire team, and then other items that we need to navigate. And of course, when we have those really hard weeks that I mentioned before, we can call Good Life Therapy on kind of a 911 basis, and they would have somebody come to our office that week to talk with our mission team. And, for us, we have a lot of younger employees, and they really haven't had a lot of the life experience that older employees have. And so really having that group camaraderie, the conversations, and just being able to talk out loud about what you're experiencing and building that mental resiliency has really been an important component of what we provide them and how they experience their jobs every day. So the costs, how does this work? And so for us, when it came down to it, it was really minimal. Again, you can see here, it costs us $150 per employee, and we have 18 team members, and not everyone uses it, but it's there in the budget in case someone decides to elect for that option. And then the group sessions are $250 each, and we vary from 4 to 6 times a year. But what about feedback? We're lucky that at Make-A-Wish, we have a Gallup survey results. And so we can monitor this year over year and in kind of tempo check-ins at halfway through the year if needed. But internally, just through management conversations and in group meetings, talking about, is this working? What do you want to see? How can we change this? The feedback has been really positive and strong. And we've adopted how we do the group meetings, just even into smaller groups within each kind of working segment. So from the mission delivery team to the fundraising team to management, to really make sure we were meeting everyone's needs and everyone was being able to participate where they could. So it's been a really great evolution, and it was completely affordable for us to use and bring in. So those are my 2 policies that we have adopted both at the city and at Make-A-Wish Iowa. But I want to make sure that as we work towards closing here, you really also have one more resource, and that's NAMI. If you are not familiar with NAMI Iowa, again, they cover the entire state. Please look them up. Please connect with them. And I thought that right here, there's some really great talking points and statistics for you to really think about. And some of these just break my heart, especially that third one, where 24% of Iowa's 11th graders and 17% of Iowa's 6th graders had thoughts of suicide. That breaks my heart. And I want to make sure that I, as a mother, especially, have NAMI as a resource to be able to communicate with my children, watch for warning signs, or even how to make sure my children know how to identify this in their friends. We shouldn't be scared of these conversations. We should be just empowered to be educated and aware of how to help when somebody needs it, so we don't feel awkward and unprepared. So I know NAMI can be that great resource for you and also for your organizations. So just as we are concluding here, what else? What other things can we do around mental health policies? And really, there's some simple things that don't require building a policy, working with your insurance broker and putting it into the budget or passing it as a city council. And one, lead from the top. If you are talking about, I need a mental health day, which is the second item on here, or I need to just pause so I can be a better boss, a better business decision maker, that's going to help others feel reinforced to do the same. Making sure that you're offering something just to get the body moving. Does every meeting need to be in a cubicle or in an office space? Can we take advantage of the nice days and have walking meetings? Get the body and mind moving out into an outdoor environment and have a walking meeting to engage all of our senses. And again, studies show when you're outside, when you're in the environment, you're boosting serotonin, you're thinking more creatively and differently, and that contributes to a positive mental health outcome. That doesn't require a budget amendment. It's just a different way of doing a meeting. Food. Everybody loves food days at the office. And so is it something as simple as that, where you're rotating it through team members or managers and departments and just really providing that where it works? And consider, working with your local broker and contact any of the resources that I've listed here for further information. And so I know we're going to have some Q&A, I just want to say thank you for being willing to receive this information today. I hope you feel excited to take this on. It shouldn't be a scary thing to tackle. I hope that you can embrace this and lead for your teammates and help, just your organization stand out and support our most valuable resources, which are our people, for the benefit of your organization. And of course, just a little quote for you, and I think it relates to mental health, is about everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. It's a good sticky note to keep on your computer. I know it's a good reminder for me. So thank you again. And I really appreciate you letting me be here today. And thank you, Secretary Paul Pate, for leading this conversation and for making sure that our business community has the resources to be as successful as they can be. That's all.
All right, thank you, Sarah. That was an amazing presentation with a lot of good information. So now we're going to go ahead and move into the Q&A portion. So if you have questions, please feel free to post those in the Q&A box and we'll go ahead and answer those. It looks like we do already have one in there for you.
Yes, and thank you for submitting this, Richard. That is a hard thing to process. So Richard just asked, how do you help someone who is stressed out even though they don't want to admit it? I have found that there's two sides of the stress. If it's personal stress versus working stress, I really make sure, especially in a leadership management conversation versus the friend conversation, that I'm asking my employees, what's getting in your way from meeting your goals? What are you prioritizing? And how can I clear the path? So it's making sure that they're doing exactly what they need to be doing. We all know this, but it's verbalizing it out loud and also supporting them when they are saying, I can't accomplish all of these things at once, digging into why or what are the roadblocks. We talk about those things out loud, but if it's things outside of the workplace that you have no control over, and I recognize something's going on, I start sharing more and I open that door. So I talk about, gosh, this weighs on my mind. I'm worried about this for my family. I'm worried about, my children and their grades or my parents. And when you start to open that door, and of course, as managers, it's hard, you have to balance that. When they see that open, if they walk through, you can really begin to support them. But again, leading from the top, when I can say, hey, I've gone to Good Life Therapy. They're great. I just love getting things off my chest. It will really make them feel comfortable and respond maybe on their own time, but know that you are a safe place and a safe person to talk to. So that's where I would start. Again, I'm not a mental health expert, but that's where I found success. So I hope that helps. And gosh, Caitlin, I wish I knew the answer to this. What are ways to navigate burnout in corporate environments? I have been very clear with my team, and I even say, I have to take a mental health day. I am not going to be a good decision maker when I'm burned out. And that's a scary thing to do as a leader. And when you do it the first time and you show your team, they will come to you when they've had the bad day, when they can't do it. And that is that's in my mind, those days that are borderline too far when you're really getting close to being burned out. But I do not want myself or our teammates making decisions when they're fried. Again, that's where you're going to find human error. And so if you can, and you're not going to get the best quality of work. So if you have a policy around mental health days or being responsive, but also demonstrating that you can show up for them. There's an important meeting, but you're trained, you're ready to assist. That really supports them when they need to take that break. I know that's not the answer, but for myself, I am so passionate about what I get to do at Make-A-Wish Iowa and at the city, that when you are aligning passion with what you do every day, and I recognize that not everyone is in that place in their life, it's a game changer. And so for me, I personally am motivated when I see how hard our kids are fighting their critical illness. And I am so thankful that I have my health and that I do. And so burnout for me and getting to that point is very different because, again, strong point of reference and just love of the mission. And so that's just something else that contributes to burnout is maybe, is this the right role for you? Are you utilizing all of your skills and talents in the right way? Or are you being pushed into areas that you don't feel comfortable, you don't have enough information on? These are really good things to cover with your manager, but I recognize that not everyone has a safe manager to go to. I have been very lucky in my career journey and also not so unlucky. I haven't always had the best bosses, but those really great ones help teach me how to help other people identify their strengths, identify their weaknesses, and put me in a good position to be working in an area where I was focused on my strengths. And that really plays a role in preventing burnout. I think we could have a whole nother conversation about this, Ashley, and maybe Secretary Paul Pate could bring in an expert here. I know a lot of people really love information about tips and tools for helping their team and themselves preventing burnout.
I would agree with that. It's very important. So thank you. And great question.
I don't see any more unless you do.
Don't see any more questions right now, but I'll wait a second just to see if anyone has anything else quick.
And I will just say, maybe even in closing, I have learned that the more we have talked on both the city side and at Make-A-Wish about mental health, everyone has a story and you will be very surprised. And so I just really encourage you to just have it be a part of conversation. You can even open the door by, I sat in on this presentation today. What do you know about mental health resources? Or rattle off a statistic. It can just open the door and you will be very surprised about the feedback and what will come back to you as you open the door for a better conversation and improvements in the office.
I would echo that as well, like just the importance of having those conversations and opening that door. Like you said, that's a great way to put that. So looks like we do not have any more questions at this moment. So I wanted to say thank you again to everyone who joined us today. And of course, thank you to Sara again. We appreciate having your time today. And Sara, we really appreciate your valuable presentation. And then everyone, you will receive an email shortly with the webinar recording, and we will also have a feedback survey in there. So we invite you to fill that out as well. And I'll also send out the resources that were in Sara's presentation as well, so that you can reference those. As she said, they're very great resources. I've read through the reports and there's a lot of good information there. So I encourage you to read through those. And then please stay tuned for more information on our next webinar. You can do that by subscribing to the Pate Report and following our social media pages. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks.